everyone to the planning board meeting for the town of Newbury for the 19th of February 2020. My name is Pete Pecos. To my left is
Larry Murphy.
Leslie Matthews.
49.
Mary Stone.
Martha Taylor, Town Planner.
wonderful. We're going to have a couple of appearances to start off tonight. First appearance will be Adam True requesting to extend a tripartite agreement for subdivision at 255 High Road.
And he seems not to be here at
Okay.
the moment,
We
so
will continue along with Steve Sawyer, DCI submission of preliminary subdivision plan of land of 105 High Road, map R48, lot 49, owner Sandra and Arthur Casanas, applicant DePiro LLC.
So this year, we're submitting a preliminary subdivision plan. Really, the intent is just it's to protect us on the zoning changes.
Okay.
So it's 13 copies. It's a 2-lot subdivision. I actually have a board if you wanted to see what we're submitting.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Any questions? As of yet?
not as of yet.
Okay, we'll wait till we hear what we look before us.
Do you want the easel?
Yeah, I actually have one in my bag.
Okay.
Actually, the chair works fine if you want to use that.
Okay.
It's a very easy easel.
All right. So what we're doing here, it's really, we're not, to be honest, we're not intending to build this. We're just subdividing the 2 lots to freeze the zoning, the current zoning. So basically, it's just a roadway, come in, cul-de-sac.
Steve, I might have to do one thing. Just kind of
Oh.
stand over this way because I think that TV is going to capture you.
Okay, there we go. A simple cul-de-sac, cutting the land into 2 lots, so it's a 2-lot preliminary subdivision. There's the only waiver, we are actually requesting a waiver for sidewalks where it's just 2 lots. Other than that, it meets all of the dimensional controls of the subdivision regulations. So that's basically it. We submitted 4 plans, a cover sheet, the title sheet, and then 2 sheets of the plan of land, and then civil plan, the design plan, with just it's a conceptual plan showing the grading, 2-foot, actually the regulations just ask for conceptual 2-foot contours, but we had 1-foot existing contours, so it's 1-foot grading. There'd be swales on either side, country drainage, with an infiltration basin in the center. So that's about it. I've provided 13 copies, and I believe we have to get I think the planning board signs the application.
Yes, the planning board signs the application after they vote to accept it.
Yeah, okay, and then there's the filing fee,
Right, which
a
is
$900 check.
Yeah.
And there's an original with, I think it's 13 total.
Okay, all right.
And so that's basically it.
So that includes the environmental analysis plus your cover letter?
Yeah, cover letter,
And the plans?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
and that's it.
All right, and I did review the plans last week, sent Steve my comments on Friday, and this came in today, so I haven't reviewed it to make sure that everything was picked up. There was nothing that was hugely major. But the board has 45 days to take action on it. No public hearing is required.
So basically, if I understand this correctly, this is just so your intention is actually not to go forward with this, but just to have a plan on record.
Plan on record, I guess legally, what it does, when you file a preliminary subdivision, it freezes the zoning. I guess you'd have to follow with the definitive.
Yeah,
Within 7 months or 8
within
months.
7
It has
months,
to be
yeah.
submitted within 7 or 8 months. To be honest, I think we're still looking to move forward with, I think our next submission is going to be the OSRD submission.
Okay.
With the yield, our proposed OSRD special permit submission. We still would like to, our preference is to proceed in that manner.
So is it your understanding that if you proceed with the OSRD, this would still serve to freeze the zoning?
Yes, it does. I'm not sure if you have to, I'd have to check with our council, but you may have to actually submit the 2-lot a actual definitive. But I think you can work concurrently with the definitive and the OSRD special permit. I think that's how Attorney Griffin had relayed to us. You don't have to file the definitive first and then come back and file the OSRD. So I think we'll work on, as far as it's a lot of money in engineering to file full definitive, and our preference is the OSRD special permit, on this. And if we were, so.
Martha, do you have any questions or concerns?
I did have a question which came in my head and went right back out again.
Let's see if it comes back. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Comment come back? Almost, I can see it's there.
It's close. It's close.
No pressure, though.
Yeah, none at all. I'm not on TV or anything.
No,
And it's not live, so don't
being
worry.
recorded.
It's only gonna be on YouTube.
The check.
Well, Martha thinks, so you're satisfied that the application is complete at this point?
Yeah, I think, if there's anything else that's missing, we'll pick it up during the review.
Okay.
I guess one of the questions for the board is, given what Steve has said tonight, whether the board feels any need to have peer review on this for stormwater. It's pretty
Well,
pretty
there's no,
straightforward, and
actually,
we're not intending
yeah.
to,
Well, the thing is, there's no stormwater required with the preliminary, it's
Right,
just,
it's all-
it's when you file a definitive,
Right,
so
right.
I guess, once we get to the definitive, I imagine there'd be if we were to file a definitive.
right, absolutely.
There'd be a peer review required at that time.
And there are provisions in the preliminary plan section of the subdivision rules and regs for peer review if the board wants it, but it's, it's very sort of general at this point.
Okay. So it would be just a matter of accepting the application at this point in time.
Right.
Okay.
Prepared for a motion?
I am.
I'll move we accept the application.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All righty.
Okay, thank you.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Yep.
Sign date down there. We also need to, amount received was the 900, and
Is the 17th all day? It's the 19th all day.
Thank you very much.
That's for you. All right, we'll bounce back in our appearance. Adam, do you want to come on up? Microphone is yours.
Adam True, 255 High Road, and 1 and 2 William Hurley Way. Here to get, hopefully to get the signatures for the tripartite extension agreement so we can get the subdivision closed out, or start the process.
Martha, do we have any questions on anything?
I don't think so at this point.
Been signed off by the bank.
It's been signed off by the bank and by Adam.
Okay. Shall we do it?
So, board just needs to vote to,
Move approval.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent.
All right, thank you very much.
Got that signed now?
so maybe we could do it
A little bit later.
a little bit later.
I like that idea.
All right.
Continuing right along with our appearances. John Colantino, submission of a definitive subdivision plan for Colantino Crossing, 108 Main, map U11, lot 1A, and off Main Street, map R41, lot 56. Owner applicant, Triple Q Inc., John Colantino, manager.
So we've been anticipating this submission. Doug and I have had a couple of meetings with Mr. Colantoni and his team. He called me this afternoon to let me know that they aren't quite ready.
Okay.
And, which is good, because we hadn't had a chance to review it, so, he's now going to aim for submission on March 4th, and we'll be getting me, a copy for review, by the middle of next week, hopefully at the beginning of next week, so we'll just pass this item over.
Okay, pass it over. So we have 3 minutes. Probably old business zoning amendments. Do you want to touch on that now? or-
No, I think
Okay.
that'd be a full discussion.
Ready, do you want to do anything with town planners to kill a minute or two?
I could start my report if
Okay.
you like.
Sure.
So a couple things, I attended a couple of workshops and seminars that were both quite interesting. One was kind of an update of the OSRD, Open Space Residential Development bylaw. It was given by Randall Arendt, who was kind of the father of all of this, Dave Mountain 20 years ago. And I went to one of his workshops and worked with Doug to develop the town's current OSRD, and we were one of the first in the state to do it. And the event was hosted by the town of Harvard, because they've just gone through a process of updating their OSRD. But, and there was actually quite a bit of discussion about various aspects of it, determining yield either through a conventional yield plan or by formula, and kind of the process that people are supposed to go through, which is very much the same, identifying primary and secondary conservation areas, then locating the houses, and then putting the roadways in. Engineers always do it backwards, put the roads in first and then figure everything else out. So, there are a couple, and I've corresponded with Mr. Arndt a couple of times about a couple of questions. So there are a couple of ones that have been recently adopted that I'd like to take a look at and see how they pertain to, or ours, and what we might do. One of the thing that some towns have done is actually flip it around so the OSRD becomes by right, and a conventional subdivision is special permit. Under the law, all we need to do is to allow one by right pathway, and it could either be conventional or it could be the OSRD. So, I'm exploring that as
That's
well.
really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of changes the way we would think about that.
Yeah, it does change how we think about it. But it really emphasizes the, the idea of doing a more, clustered
Mhm.
type of development and saving the open space. Anyway, it was really, Kristen and I went together, it was very well attended, and, good session. It lasted for it was 5 hours.
Excellent.
So, anyway, the rest of it I will do later.
Perfect. Okay. Leslie. Time to do clerk things, I think, because I should stop doing that.
What would you like me to do?
We could do the public hearing.
Okay.
We're at 7:15.
Public hearing, special permit modification application, Borrego Solar Inc. request to modify condition number 6 of the special permit granted for a 2.785 MW solar energy generating facility on property located at 136 Main Street, map R41, lot 42A, 138 Main Street, map R41, lot 42B, 140 Main Street, map R41, lot 42, and off I-95, map R42, lot 13. Owners Ruth Yassar and 136, 140 Main Street, and off I-95, and KV and Kelly Yassar and Karen Yassar, trustees, 138 Main Street. Applicant, Borrego Solar Systems Incorporated.
Actually, here's the public hearing notice, which
Also needs
was
to
in
be.
your packets.
Yep. Thank you.
Town of Newbury Planning Board Public Hearing Notice. Residents of the Town of Newbury and other interested persons, please note that on Wednesday, February 19th, 2020, at 7:15 PM, in the second floor hearing room at the Newbury Municipal Offices, 12 Kent Way, Byfield, Massachusetts, 01922, and the Newbury Planning Board will hold a public hearing to consider a special permit modification application to modify one of the conditions of the special permit granted on May 16th, 2018 by the Newbury Planning Board for Borrego Solar Systems Incorporated for a 2.785 MW solar energy generating facility on property located at 136 Main Street, map R41, lot 42A, 138 Main Street, map R41, lot 42B, 140 Main Street, map R41, lot 42, and off I-95, map R42, lot 13. The applicant, Borrego Solar Systems Incorporated, is requesting modification of condition number 6 pertaining to the color of the underside of the panels, as stated in the special permit modification narrative and shown on a supporting documentation included with the application. Applicant, Borrego Solar Systems, Inc., 55 Technology Drive, Suite 102, Lowell, Mass. 01851. Owners of record, Ruth Ysair, 136 and 140 Main Street, and off I-95, and KV and Kelly Ysair and Karen Ysair, trustees, 138 Main Street. The application is on file for review during regular business hours with the town clerk and the planning office, 12 Kent Way, Byfield. For more information, contact the planning office at 978-465-0862, extension 312. All persons interested or wishing to be heard relative to the proposed project should appear at the time and place designated above. Peter Pecos, Chair, Newbury Planning Board, dated February 4th, 2020.
And it appeared, the legal ad appeared in the Daily News on February 4th and February 11th. And it is a special permit, so it requires a supermajority of the board. We
Okay.
have 4 full members here, which constitutes a supermajority.
Okay, wonderful. So we will hear from our applicant, and the one topic, just for clarification, is we were just talking about the solar panel, the color of the solar panel, to vary it from its approved color of gray to white, if I understand correctly, so.
That is correct. My name is Steve Long from Borrego Solar, and that is all we're asking for tonight is an amendment to that condition of the approval of the special permit, and that it required that the back sheet be white, or not white, be gray. And I submitted documentation in our application that shows that commercially available solar panels only come with white back sheets. So that is the only type that it's available. I have a sample right here. I want to show you what it looks like. So this is a small piece of what one looks like. This would be the front. This is the back. And it has a white back sheet for heat. So if it has a black back sheet, it creates more heat in the panel and it will degrade this over time. The typical leases for these are 20 years to 25 years. So these have to be viable for that long of a period of time for banks to invest in the project. So that's why they want to do everything they can to keep the integrity of the panel. So I can tell you, as you can see, these panels, also a condition of the approval was that these not be seen by any abutting properties. So Martha and Peter were out at the site the other day, and we've already planted some of the screening. And the condition is also that if you can see it after the project's done and the screening's in, if you can still see it, we're going to plant more plantings. So these are never going to be able to be seen anyway. I think the concern was the white back being seen by potentially somebody from outside the property, but the screening should take care of that anyway. And when these are installed in the field, they'll be at an angle like this. and they'll be in the shade, they face north. So you'll never see it like glare white. So we're just asking that you remove that condition or modify it so that we can have white back panels.
Very good. Any questions?
The condition is in play because,
The condition was put into place because one of our board members at the time felt strongly that we should have, or try to have gray panel, the backside of the panel's gray.
To make them as
As
invisible as possible.
Since they would
Okay.
blend in.
all right.
Yep.
Okay, and the white is not invisible, or,
Well, it's not available. Well, the white is the only commercially made solar panels only come in white with a
Gotcha.
back sheet.
okay. Thank
And
you.
it's for, as I explained, it's for the heat.
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Was that the case when the decision was issued, that gray was not available?
I don't know if it was available, and I didn't realize that. I didn't have the backup that I've had now that really there's nothing commercially available. If you do residential, you can get black backing. So they do make a 60 cell module that does have that. Ours are 72. It's a bigger size, and they're guaranteed to last a longer period of time. And
No,
that's why
I
they
get
do it.
that.
Yeah.
But I get the distinction why you wouldn't want the black. I'm just wondering if there was apparently a good deal of discussion, apparently it was, did you not realize back in 2000?
To be honest, I said I didn't want to have that condition, and John Weiss, who was the chairman at the time, said he wouldn't approve the project.
And the gray is not available even on special order?
Correct.
Any other questions from our board members? Anyone from the audience that has a question regarding this topic?
I'm just curious that if you,
What I would have you do is I'd have you come up, identify yourself, and where you live, and then you could ask your question regarding the color change before
I'm
us.
Julie Dunnigan from 6 Courtney Drive.
Hi.
My question is, if this has been going on for so long, why did you propose gray if they weren't commercially available?
So
It doesn't,
we didn't propose gray.
you agreed to gray.
I agreed to gray because there was gonna be no approval, and to be honest, the technology changes. And this was approved 2 years ago, so who knew what would be available? It's definitely not available. We have documentation from a company in Colorado that basically looks at all this stuff, and it's not available commercially.
Well, you just said you agreed to it for approval, which to me opens up a whole other set of what else did you agree to?
But it,
So what I don't want to do is I just want you to kind of address the board
Yes.
with your concerns, because we don't want.
So
back and forth.
my question is, if he agreed for approval, what else was just agreed to for approval? If they didn't come in gray, why did you agree to it? You should have known, if this is what you do, that they weren't available in gray.
May I clarify a little
Please
bit?
do.
So at the time, there was discussion about the color of the panel, and as I recall, it appeared that gray was a possibility. Wasn't as commonly used as white, but it didn't sound as if it was completely out of the question at the time.
Okay. Just curious.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience would like to speak to this topic of gray versus white?
Hi, Alicia Greco, 3 Courtney Drive. I want to make it abundantly clear that I'm here in my capacity as a resident and in a butter, and not in any way, shape, or form my role as a member of the Board of Selectmen. I have a concern that if this project goes in as described, that the panels will be visible. I understand that there's screening in play, and that they say that they're going to screen it as much as they can. But what concerns me is they're planting currently in January. I don't know what is going to that's going to take. And I'd spent a long time, I'm not quite exactly sure of the, and maybe Julie can answer this question, of how many feet it is from her property line. But it's very close. And this the board is all new. Peter is probably the only one that can remember this, George too. It was very contentious, and it was very important that this not be visible, because it is an industrial installation placed in a residential neighborhood. That's the reason why. And if you change the, the panels were chosen white for a reason. I mean, it's not like it was just said, well, gray or black or whatever, but specifically white was disallowed for a reason. And to just willy-nilly say, well, they can't get that now, so we'll just go with another one, I think does a disservice to the whole process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So what, we're just taking testimony from people right now. Does anyone else want to make a comment? Okay, so I'm going to now open it up to the board for any discussion at this point in time.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, most of us here are new to this, and it was obviously a very lengthy process, if I recall.
There was.
And given the requirements of screening and the way that the panels are placed, and they are essentially facing down and to the north, as you say, I find it hard to believe that if it was known that gray was not available, that the project would have been disapproved.
If gray was not available.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear, so I don't.
So, I think the important take-home for us to appreciate is that one of the requirements is that this be completely screened at all times. And that is part of the permitting conditions. That being the case, if some of the plantings, and Martha and I did a site walk yesterday, and there are a number of plantings out there, it's pretty dense right now, and I would envision the mixture of the plantings will help with the screening process. That is upon the applicant to make sure that is maintained at all times. So screening should be achieved. If that is the case, then I would think the visibility of the panels would be minimized. If the visibility of the panels is minimized, and as you indicate, they're going to be tilted at an angle which actually creates a shadow, so they're not going to be white as in reflective. I think indirectly we're getting to a solution. Any other comments from board members, discussion points?
Just because I wasn't there at the time, basically, what is the actual height of each one of the panels once they're completed?
So, if I recall correctly, Martha, are the racks 10 feet tall?
I think they're about 10 feet at the
Yeah,
back.
so the lowest edge, they're stacked, so the lowest edge is about 3 feet, and the top edge is 10. And they're at an angle of 25 degrees. So they're
Right,
big racks, yeah, that are an angle of 25 degrees.
okay.
Yep.
So what we don't need to do is we don't need to go into a discussion of the project and its configuration and where the
I'm
panels
just
are gonna
trying
be.
to understand how
Right,
the
right,
screening would work.
Right, because there was a lot of, as you've alluded to, there was a lot of discussion and modification and compromise and going back and forth with this project to get it to its position. So today we're looking at commercially available use panels come with a white backing. That's how they're made. Residential panels come with a black backing. Residential panels aren't appropriate for this type of a design. So that being the case, with the project going forward, they would require white panels, and it's now, that's what we're here to talk about.
I'm good for now.
Good.
Larry?
Yeah, I don't have any other questions at the moment.
I'm good.
Okay.
I understand.
Any other new comments?
I have got to say something.
A new comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
definitely.
Yep, new comment.
I know this company, Borrego Solar, has another project in town, and I have heard, I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but I have heard from a very reliable source that you can see this project from a street. I believe it's the Scotland Road. So I would just like the town to be aware of that and to have them maybe take a look at it. Martha, I hate to give you something else to do, but if you could just take a ride out and see if you can see, because the way the solar bylaw reads is that all projects are supposed to be screened from the street, and this one, I believe, isn't. So I just
So-
wanted to bring it to your attention.
So we're talking about colors of panels of this, for this project right now, so I'm not sure if that's gonna really.
So if the screening is gonna be if the panels are gonna be 10 feet tall, you have to make sure, and they're gonna be white in the back, you have to make sure that the trees that are planted are gonna be able to screen that.
Right.
And Leslie had a very good point.
Okay.
And that's kind of, with the screening, it's all about screening.
Well, this other project you're talking about, do you know the color of the back of the panels?
I don't.
I mean,
That's a good question.
would they be white?
So let me show you something. So I've been doing this, when I started, honestly, this was one of my first projects, which was like 6 years ago, believe it or not. So I've been to a ton of sites. So when I agreed to the gray, let me show you, see the back of the panel now? It looks white. So if I hold it at an angle like this, which is what I always walk up to it and see, it looks gray.
Because there's a black panel on the other side.
Yeah, so I honestly thought that they were gray, until I went and looked at it in the light, and I'm like, the back cities are white. So if you go look at it, you'll think they're gray too.
Well, I'm wondering if that isn't if we ought not to do that. Just take
Well,
a side.
The installation that Alicia was referring to is the Middle Road one, which is, it's right at the intersection of Route 1 and Middle Road. And that was,
I can tell, they're white, but if you look at it, they're at this angle, and they look gray.
Was that a residential property?
it's
it
in the
is a-
Business and Light Industrial
Yes.
District. And so it's visible really from Route 1. If you come over the bridge and you look to the right, you're heading south, it's on the right-hand side. You can see it right before you hit JRM.
Okay. I
So,
drive by there 100 times a week and probably never,
If you didn't know it was there, you
Yeah.
have to look.
So
You
the-
have to look back at it. You have to know it's there and look for it, otherwise it kind of blends in.
but that would be, if the board is interested in seeing what a Borrego project looks like, that would be one to see. Can we drive in? I know the access road is off of Middle Road. Is
Yeah,
it-
you can drive in, but I don't want to make this more than it is. I
Right,
mean, it's a
understood.
color thing.
Understood.
And I can tell you, those are the same as these are white. And
Understood,
If
but
you look,
If the board, if the board wants to actually
the
see what it
board
would
wants
look
to-
like, that might be
I don't
helpful for
think
them.
it's really necessary for a color. I mean, if you want to, you can.
well, the suggestion's made, and apparently there was some discussion in the original hearing, that the white is gonna be a distraction, that it's gonna cause
It
some,
wasn't based on that site at all,
well,
so.
my point is, if you have a similar thing in place, let's go look at it and see if it's a problem. I mean, leave the screening aside.
Yeah, I'm fine with you looking at it, I just didn't want to get caught up on something other than the color. And I can tell you they look very similar to this, and they're at a 25-degree angle, so when you go up to it, to be honest, I thought they were gray. So, and you may too, but they're actually white.
So if the panels are only available in white, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So then it becomes an issue of either we allow this to go forward with the white, or it doesn't get done. I mean, what's the option?
Well,
What's the option?
I don't know if there is an option.
Okay. That's just,
I don't know if there is,
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know if there is an option.
Right. Okay, white is available and nothing else is. I mean, I guess.
Yep.
Yep, okay. I just wanted to be sure I understood.
You're
There isn't
correct.
any other color
No,
available.
I mean, honestly, my initial impression, and I haven't heard anything to change it, is that this is a non-issue, okay, the color. It's really the way I feel about it. On the other hand, there was a good deal of discussion last time. We have neighbors who are concerned about it. Personally, I think we owe it to them, at least, to take a minute and look at a similar project and see if we can identify any issues with the color of the back of the panels.
Okay,
And that's exactly where I'm at.
okay. Other members?
I would like to go out and see it.
Yeah, Okay, it appears as though we're going to be doing a little site visit to take a look at the panels to see how they appear.
Guess
Okay.
we'll pick a sunny day.
We'll pick a sunny day, and
If we can get one of those in March or February or March.
we can do that. So that,
Check the weather.
yes, check the weather. That being the case,
Can't vote on it.
we wouldn't be voting on this today. I think we're gonna have to do a little visitation and then come back to continue this. And so I'm going to probably have to look for a continuation date, Martha.
So the board, excuse me, the board's next meeting is March 4th. We do have the golf center at night
Okay.
scheduled, although I would expect that this discussion might be fairly short.
Right.
Is that already time, is that time
Right.
set?
I think 7:15, if I recall correctly.
So what could be done, Steve, is we could do a site visit,
Yeah.
There-
And
you know.
do you have a preference of time?
We could probably try to coordinate that, and Martha will be in touch to coordinate a date when the board members can also be available. And we'll probably just need 10 or 15 minutes to do a little walk around and take a look at maybe midday to see how it looks in
Yeah,
bright
I'm
sun.
available on the weekend. I don't live that far away, so if
Okay.
you want to do that, that'd be fine with me.
Okay. So let's first look at our time for our continuance.
So the golf center is 7:15 on March 4th.
Should we do 6:45?
We could do 6:45.
I would like to go in that direction.
Yeah, other than the other
Yeah.
way.
Okay. So we would get you in before the golf center on
Oh.
March 4th?
That works.
Perfect. I'd welcome a motion at this point in time.
I move to continue the public hearing until our March 4th meeting, 6:45 PM.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, there we have it. And we will be in touch
Schedule
to set up
tomorrow.
a sidewalk. Thanks very much.
That's fine.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All righty, we will continue on our agenda then. So I think we'll pick up with our old business, Martha. That works on your end?
Sure, so the voting lines.
Okay?
So in your packets, and I emailed to you this afternoon, some language for the dimensional changes that we've been talking about, and also a first very marked up draft of the wireless communications bylaw.
You want to start with the dimensional,
Yeah, so let's start with that, but before we get into that, here's a revised schedule.
thank you.
So we're basically out 2 weeks from where we were before. Originally, we had been anticipating submitting these to the selectmen, any zoning amendments to the selectmen on February 6th, voting on them on February 5th, and we weren't ready to do that. So under this schedule, if the board votes tonight to refer them or submit them to the selectmen, they can take them up at their meeting next Tuesday, refer them back to the planning board for public hearing. The public hearing would be scheduled for March 18th, with 2 notices in the paper, one on the 3rd and one on the 10th. The selectmen are gonna be meeting with the FinCom and voting on the warrant. My understanding is they'll be doing that on March 31st. So, basically, in order to get our language on the warrant, it would need to be ready by then. So, regarding the dimensional changes that we've talked about.
Yes.
In your packet, you've got one set of things with dimensional regulations, and it's a combination of language that Larry had put together with some feedback from town council. So the language here would be to add a footnote 6 to the minimum dimensions column in the table of use regulations, which is on the second page here. With language stating that the width of a lot shall be equal to at least 90% of the required frontage of the front yard setback. Further, a circle with a diameter equal to 80% of the applicable required frontage must be able to be located within the lot lines of any lot. Structures may be constructed outside of this circle, provided that all other requirements of this bylaw are met. When I originally met with council, she had some concern about setting a minimum width that was kind of related to our driveway width. So backing up from that, I added language here to say no lot shall be less than 40 feet wide between the front yard setback and this circle. To illustrate what this might look like, I did a small diagram, which is not beautiful.
Is it in our packet?
No, it's not in
Oh,
your
okay.
packet, so I'm gonna hand it out
Okay.
now. And this is based on a residential lot, and it's freehand, so my apologies. But basically what this shows is 125 feet of frontage, so that's the standard in the residential agricultural district. Set, required front yard setback of 20 feet. At 20 feet, it would actually be 112 feet 6 inches. That's 90% of the 125. Then for whatever distance between that and what we might call a building area with a 100-foot circle, we've got a minimum width of 40 feet. Then you've got the 100-foot circle, and then after that, it can kind of do whatever it does. There's no requirement after you hit the building area. And as the language indicates, the building doesn't actually have to go within that circle, but it would need to meet all applicable setback requirements and other requirements. So graphically, this is kind of what that language represents. So I don't know if that's what you were expecting or not, but that's,
Oh, it's really, it's helpful.
that's kind of what it is.
Right, that's all. Larry, do you wanna, bring anything more to the table on this one?
I'm not quite understanding how the language jives with the sketch, to be honest with you, Martha.
Okay, so, we'll backtrack here. So the required frontage is 125 feet.
Right,
And then the first statement, the width of a lot shall be equal to at least 90% of the required frontage at the front yard setback. So front yard setback in residential agricultural is 20 feet.
oh, I see it,
So
okay.
at 20 feet, 90% of that would be 112 feet, 6 inches.
Yeah,
And then after that, getting back to the circle, the area with the circle, we've got a minimum width of 40 feet, which would include the driveway and the required setback for the driveway on either side, which we'll get back into in a minute. And then the 100-foot circle, and then the lot does whatever it does after that. So does that,
yep,
Yes, no, I get it.
thank you.
So I think the visual is gonna be necessary when we do this presentation.
it will be difficult not to have one.
Right.
Yeah, because it's too abstract.
Yeah.
And I think it would be helpful to do, you know, if the board wants to move forward with this, I could do something for some of the other major areas like commercial highway and the business and light industrial, which have different frontage requirements and setback requirements. Business and light industrial, it's a 50-foot setback and 200 feet of frontage. So this would look a little bit different.
Okay. It might be helpful too, as we go from the 125 down to the 90%, when you hit the 90%, if we can color coordinate that with maybe highlighting the 90% at, yellow or whatever color in the 112.6 would be that color. And then, I think it makes it understandable, because when we start talking about the circle and the diameter, I think people could potentially get lost in that discussion, but the diagrammatic helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, diagram will help.
Yep. And the 40 feet is very understandable too.
This is kind of the most simplistic way. Obviously, it could be, configured somewhat differently, but this was
Okay.
a way to help at least make it visual.
And then on page 3,
So, well, going back to
Yes.
page 1, the other part of it was to add a new footnote 7 as follows. See section 97-7 relative to driveway location and requirements. So page 2 basically is what the table would look like with the addition of 6. And I put that footnote, the original suggestion was to put it at frontage, I think, but it seemed like minimum dimensions is really probably where it makes sense.
Okay.
And then that shows up in the notes at the end, as well as note 7 regarding driveways. The other way to handle it would be with, you know, a double asterisk or something similar to the way we do height. And then the next thing was regarding driveways themselves. We had a couple of blanks which I filled in based on a reference that was made recently to Mass Fire Code. So the first part of this would be amend section 97-7C, C1 of the zoning bylaw to read as follows. Driveways for single and two-family residences shall have a minimum width of 9 feet, which is what we have right now, except that driveways for single and two-family residences which exceed 250 feet in length shall have a minimum width of 20 feet. And then a second part of this, and in this part, the red was what was suggested by town council. No portion of any driveway or any driveway construction and driveway appurtenances, including its cuts, fills, culverts, etc., shall be closer than 10 feet to any side or rear property line.
What's
Obviously,
an
it has-
appurtenance? Sounds good.
It sounds good. It was Lisa's
Does
language.
anyone know what an appurtenance is?
I can find out for you.
It's something related
Related
to the driveway.
I would think.
Right, thank you. That clears it right up.
Anything more on that, Martha, as I look up this word, just for definition purposes?
And then she also suggested that we insert a definition in 9711. And there are a couple here. The first one I actually put in, it's a kind of a composite of driveway definitions from a couple of different towns, Watertown, Reading, and a couple of others. So a portion of a lot which is designed for vehicular access to a garage or off-street parking or loading spaces. Two that Lisa had suggested but was not tied to. One is a private roadway providing unobstructed access from a street or highway or public or private way to an off-street area used for driving, servicing, or parking, or otherwise accommodating motor vehicles. I had a little concern about calling it a private roadway because that, to me, has implications of access, more access than just a driveway. If you look in Webster's or some dictionaries, it's defined as short private roads that lead to a house or garage which is maintained by an individual or group. So, it could be that none of these is perfect, but the idea would be to get a definition in our bylaw, because we don't have one right now.
So what's an appurtenance?
Is it an accessory or other item associated with a particular activity or style? So it's an accessory or something that is associated with it.
A driveway?
Well, I think it's a word that can be used with anything, so it's associated with a driveway. Driveway construction or driveway
Appurtenances.
components that go with it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, so for our definition of driveway, since we need one, and you're concerned with private roadway,
I am, because we've got subdivisions that have private roadways within them that are not driveways. They're roadways to access many houses or many lots.
Well, I think if you go with the first one, you get away from that use of that term private roadway.
it does. Leslie, do you have any thoughts?
Could you just fall into the category of private driveway?
Well, we're trying to define we're trying to define what a driveway is. because we don't have a
There's
definition.
there's nothing in the bylaws defining it.
Not even
Currently.
something simple like access to private property.
That's, yeah, so, of our three possible options, if we want to stay away from a private roadway, that leaves option 2 and option 3 out, which directs us to option 1, which is a portion of a lot which is designed for vehicular access to a garage or off-street parking or loading space or structure, right? Off-street parking.
Or off-street parking or loading spaces, it seems to cover it.
Okay.
And I hear your concern about using private driveway, yeah, a private roadway, rather.
Right.
Looking at the definition of driveway.
I'm looking. Amazing what we can find, right? A driveway is a type of private road. Yeah.
Yeah.
Driveways are paths linking a street to your home or garage. I think we've done this already, right?
Did a quick search.
A minor service road leading to a residential or business property.
Could also do a combination of the first one and the second one. So instead of saying a private roadway, you could say a portion of a lot providing unobstructed access from a street or highway or public or private way, et cetera.
Yeah, actually,
I like that.
Yeah.
Say that one more time?
So we would use the second definition, except instead of it saying a private roadway, a portion of a lot.
Right.
Providing unobstructed access from a street or highway or public or private way to an off-street area used for driving, servicing, or parking or otherwise accommodating motor vehicles.
I think that's the way to go.
Okay,
Right, the issue of individual, maintained by an individual or group, that could be confusing as well, so
Yep.
we want to eliminate that,
So,
right?
yeah. So we're kind of doing a hybrid now. We're taking the first, a portion of a
Right.
lot,
That works,
and plugging it into the second one and taking out a private roadway.
that works.
Is everyone comfortable with that?
yes.
Right,
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
Straightforward.
All right, continuing onward.
so on these, are you comfortable enough to move forward with these in these forms to refer them to the selectmen?
Well, I think we've
Or
had,
do you want to go through all of it and then come back and discuss further?
I'm ready to move it on.
Me too.
I mean, we will have another look at it, and we'll have an opportunity to make any changes at the public hearing.
We will, and, you know, we don't need to have it word for word for the public hearing. We just need to, you know, be able to advertise enough so that people understand.
Right.
Right, the only thing that I would say, I don't want the word appurtenances in there, because now you're at a public hearing and everyone's sitting there scratching their head going, what the heck's an appurtenance?
Well, it's actually, if you look at it, Mary, it's actually defined. Appurtenances include cuts, fills, culverts, et cetera.
Okay,
So you don't want to try to be, the whole,
so you need the word, is what you're
I
saying?
think you do.
You have to
Yeah.
have the word as a technical explanation.
Well, otherwise, you're limiting yourself to cuts, fills, or culverts, where,
Okay,
rather than try to anticipate every possible appurtenance
okay,
that could,
Like a mailbox?
unnecessary.
like a mailbox or something, yeah.
okay,
I'd leave it.
that's fine. I think, I'm ready to go on. I think it's good. I think the diagram is very helpful, by the way.
Okay. That being the case.
So would you like to vote to submit these to the
I would like
selectmen?
to pass them along.
Move to, we just talked about the dimensional requirements now.
Yes.
Yeah, that we forward the dimensional requirements presented by the town planner as amended per our discussion onto the selectmen.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, one off. Okay.
Thank you.
Do we want to talk about wireless? We did get this packet in today, and it had a lot of modifications from our consultant. Appreciating that there are a number of changes. Martha, I'm going to let you drive for a couple of minutes here.
Well, unfortunately, I was a little optimistic, and I didn't have a chance to go through it as I had hoped before tonight's meeting to, give you all a summary. Obviously, there's a lot of additions and deletions here, which are intended to bring our bylaw into current, up to current law. He is recommending this deletion of, taking this out of the overlay district. And the recommendation, and I don't know if he mentions it here, is to also have the selectmen adopt a grant of location for any small cell units that are gonna be placed on utility poles. I guess my concern is that it seems like there may be still a fair amount of discussion on this. And we could submit it to the selectmen and request that they refer it back and still have a little bit of time before the public hearing to refine it some.
And we can always pull it if it's too cumbersome in the process. We've gone the step of having our consultant come in. We had our presentation at our last meeting. We've received the materials. If we submit it to the selectmen, then it will come back to us for further refinement and then discussion and then
Right.
hearing.
Right.
I think that gives us an opportunity to then pull more out of it. Otherwise, I think it'll be stagnant for
Yeah.
a period of time.
It could be, and putting it before town meeting in the fall, it's not the ideal time, just because it's not as, not usually as well attended.
Well, looking at all of this information, I would like to have a little time to actually review it. So if we sent it off to the Board of Selectmen in its form, that it could be edited at our next meeting, or tweaked up a little bit,
So
need be.
We're getting pretty close to the deadline if we're gonna make it for the spring meeting, right?
We are.
We still have a workshop scheduled for Monday, by the way. I think I have it in my calendar.
We do.
Is it Monday?
It is Monday. We'll get that posted tomorrow. So this.
If it's even necessary at this point,
Right, I mean, this could be, with that could be the time really to go, if everybody has time to go through this between now and
and
then,
then we can drill it down.
drill it down, and I can provide the selectmen with revised language.
Let's do that.
That sounds good.
So if I understand, you're proposing that we vote to send it up now, but subject to perhaps revising the language after Monday?
Yes, do you see any issues with doing that?
No.
I don't have a problem with it, no.
Okay.
I'm just trying to, because if you want to get it on the selectmen's agenda for when, next week?
Yeah, I mean, basically Ellen has to include it in the agenda packet tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Let's
I
do
think
this.
we gotta move it
Yep.
along, or, like you said, we're gonna be talking about this in the fall.
Right. And we have Monday already on the books
Right.
for our workshop.
Right.
Which is the beauty of having the workshop. That gives us
Right.
the ability to openly discuss it, so let's do that. Okay.
I'll give everyone a chance to review it
Yep.
between now and Monday.
Yeah, so you all have homework.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that. So I would entertain a motion to pass this along. Leslie, this is yours.
Make a motion to pass this along with to the Board of Selectmen to get it on the agenda after review.
Is there a second?
Second.
Wonderful. Discussion. All right, all in favor? Beautiful. Thank you. Great, thanks, Martha.
All right, thank you.
All right.
It goes to Ellen tomorrow.
Good, good, good. So, new business. The word none is next to that. However, I'm gonna ask our vice chairman to bring something up.
Yeah, I'd like to see if we could get an item on the agenda to discuss putting in place some policy about deadlines for submitting matters towards our meetings. We really have nothing in place now, which I think leaves our town planners scrambling around, trying to get things together. And anyway, I think if we could just get something on one of our upcoming meetings,
Okay.
I think it would be a good thing to do.
Would you want to talk about this on Monday?
It's fine with me.
Yeah,
I'm prepared
let's
to
do it
talk about
Monday.
Okay, we could do that. I mean, that might tie into something that you and I have talked about in the past of putting together some rules and regs for the
Yeah.
planning board, and that could be part of it as a procedural.
Yeah. I have some examples that I could present on Monday.
Wonderful.
A couple of ways to go.
Wonderful. I would welcome that.
Good.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
so I'll put that on the agenda for Monday's meeting.
Good.
Okay.
Very good.
Good. Any other potential new business? Good. All righty. Then we'll continue back to our town planners report. Right on it's 8:05, Martha. Look at that.
God, that was prescient. So,
8:03.
the, couple of other things, the other, wasn't exactly a workshop, it was a panel discussion that I went to, a week ago last Friday on, solar siting. And this was hosted by the Mass Association of Planning Directors, held out in Worcester. And, so there's a panel discussion that was moderated by one of the staff people from the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission, and included somebody from National Grid, a representative from Blue Wave Solar, and the town planning director from Spencer, Mass. And so they were talking, specifically about solar bylaws and solar siting. The guy from Blue Wave was very interested in what they're calling dual-use solar arrays. So, ones that are located, say, on agricultural fields, but are set high enough so that you can actually continue farming activities or grazing underneath. There was a new word that was introduced called landscaping, if you're gonna have sheep grazing underneath these things. And so there were mention of several bylaws that have been amended recently, which I thought would be very useful for the board, so I will pull those together as well. And I wanted to follow up with the guy from Blue Wave to get a little bit more information about the dual use that they're talking about. And I think what they're trying to do is get more away from putting them in wooded areas and, finding open space, but being able to, have them complement an existing use as opposed to taking up all the land and not letting them use it for anything else.
That's great.
So, that was very interesting.
So it sounds like those two workshops were very helpful,
They were great,
Yep.
yeah, they were both very helpful,
back to back.
yeah.
Great.
Just a remander, the Citizen Planners Training Collaborative Conference is coming up in March.
What's that date again?
It's March 20, whatever the Saturday is after St. Patrick's Day. 21st, I think.
That sticks in my head for some reason.
14th is a Friday.
Yeah, it's the 21st.
Okay.
So registration for that should be opening soon. As soon as I get any emails about it with the program, I will forward them on to you all in case you're interested in going. Let's see, a few things coming down.
So just on that might be
Yes.
something that people want to put on their radar screen. It's a full-day workship. It's done at Holy Cross. They have a couple different tracks that are going on. Last year, we kind of separated and people went into different workshops, which are helpful for bringing discussion back to our group. And I think if we continue our workshop model, this only kind of feeds into that. So it's a nice event with a lot of interesting people and good speakers.
And decent lunch.
Very
Oh,
nice.
well, now you've got my attention.
No pizza and corn rolls.
Anytime you introduce food into the equation, people show.
And kind of a continental breakfast.
That's right. But it's a good take, very good take.
Endless coffee.
Sounds good.
Good workshops.
But no, it really is very, very valuable.
So, okay.
A couple of other things coming down the pike for us that I've probably mentioned, in addition to the 108 Main Street project that we're going to be getting next time. Next meeting, we will also be getting a definitive plan submission for the 68 Green Street project. The board approved the preliminary plan for that a few months ago, so that is moving forward. And as Steve said, we'll be expecting the 105 High Road
Mhm.
at some point.
Our next meeting, we have golf as well, right?
We've got golf at 7:15, right, so we'll be starting that one early. And I think that's all I have.
All right,
Thank you.
great. Liaison reports. Oh, they're not listed.
Oh, sorry,
That's okay.
it's a test of your memory.
It is. I'm gonna go for Board of Selectmen because that's the easiest.
So this was for 2/11/20. There was a gift received from Wendy Cook for $50 for the World War II memorial. They approved a Alzheimer bike ride fundraiser that, I think it was like either 100 or 120 miles. But it'll come through town. It'll be on 6/6/20. There was an appointment of Julie O'Brien for the stormwater management. The administrator's report included the Orchard Street culvert update that will go forward for repair. Looks like we received a grant of $126,324.
Yeah, if I may just add to that, we applied for 2 municipal vulnerability action grants. So one was the Orchard Street culvert replacement.
No, where is that culvert? Is that the one between Martin Burns, right after Martin Burns?
Yeah, it's where it's
Okay.
really low
Low.
and there's a fire hydrant on either side.
Yep.
And we also did receive funding for the Plum Island cost-benefit analysis.
Right.
Which will be looking at a lot of different aspects of Plum Island to try to do long-term planning. You know,
That's
for
great.
things like, does it make sense to raise the bridge and the
Right.
road, or various other infrastructure decisions and long-term planning. So, sorry, I didn't mean to butt in.
No, that's
but
okay.
I was
That's great.
involved in putting both of those grant
There'll
applications
be-
together, so.
There'll be a traffic flow change on Morgan Ave during the building of the police department, and voting day will have another kind of traffic flow because they're gonna put it all one way and change the parking up a bit for down there. So the voting will still take place at Fireman's Hall. And the Byfield Water District has 431,626 in free cash. And there'll be another training schedule for ClearGov, which it looks like will be including being able to see into the town's checkbook how all the money flows in and flows out. And what else? Cricket Lane LLC is going to be moving forward for development, which is Pearson Drive, and one of the ZBA members had to recuse themselves due to living on Pearson Drive. And Newbury will be a beta town for cybersecurity.
Is that for the municipal aspect of it?
It's for staff, so,
Good.
yeah.
I think I saw something about that, yeah.
Yeah, so there's, there are different modules, and we'll be participating in those, and I'll do an assessment of sort of where our strengths and weaknesses are, and give us guidance. Just one note on the ZBA, the Cricket Lane LLC project will be submitted to the ZBA tomorrow night.
Massachusetts, the state of Mass has basically given a go-ahead on it, though? Was that my understanding?
The Mass Housing issued the project eligibility letter on December 12th.
So they're gonna appear tomorrow night and actually,
So they are submitting,
What do you
I'm not sure that they actually dropped off all the applications today. They're like 5 boxes outside.
I'm sure. I didn't see it on the agenda, is why I asked.
So it just came in today. I think it'll just be the submission because it has to be submitted formally at a ZBA meeting. So Susan didn't know that it was coming in, so that's why it wasn't on the agenda.
So I have a question. You mentioned the Byfield Water District has a surplus of 413,000, 411,000?
431,626.
So, do they answer to the Board of Selectmen? Or are they they're a freestanding entity, right?
Right. So they, even like during voting, it doesn't go on the regular ballot, so when you want to vote for anybody to be part of the water district in Byfield, it's a completely separate ballot,
So
not connected to the,
them reporting this surplus, does that have an impact or an influence to the town?
I'm not exactly sure if it does, but that was part of Tracy's administrative report.
Do you know?
As far as I know, they're a totally separate entity. They've got their own board of directors, and I don't think that there's any,
I was just curious as to why they'd be reporting any
I'm not,
funding.
you know, I really don't know.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks. ZBA.
Yeah, well, the meeting is tomorrow night, and there are 3 requests for findings on, in Plum Island Overlay District. In all 3 cases, to raise the height of the structures, and in 2 of the cases, they're gonna raise the buildings and put up new buildings. And I've neglected to bring the agenda, so I can't report the addresses, but
Okay.
nothing that is ever likely to come before this board.
Okay. MVPC.
Commissioners' meeting is tomorrow night.
Okay. Concom met last night. I think there are only 2 things that are pertinent to us. 108, which will be coming, 108 Main Street, which will be coming our way. There was a wetland delineation, and maybe 20 and 22 Scotland might be coming our way as well with the same sort of thing. But we'll see. But other than that, everything was pretty straightforward. Good. Anything else to talk about tonight?
I don't think so.
Well, it is 8:14. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Jeez, we're not